So we're looking at solving quadratic equations, word problems. So we looked at last time that if I have a quadratic equation factored, which we have been doing a lot of, then I can take the factors and set them equal to 0. And if two things multiply to be 0, then they have to either 1 equals 0 or both. So I can set each of those factors equal to 0 and find x. So I get 2x equals -1 here, and then divide by 2. So x equals -1/2. And then I have 2x minus 3 equals 0. I could add 3. 2x equals 3, and then divide by 2. X equals 3 over 2. So we're going to use that concept today to solve some word problems. So for example, the height in feet of a golf ball after t seconds is given by h equals -16t squared plus 96t. Find how long it takes the golf ball to return to the ground. So understanding the equation, this is given the height after each second. So if I plugged in 1 for t, it would give me the height of the ball at 1 second and 2 seconds and so forth. So we want to know when the height returns to the ground. So that would be when it's back, when h is 0. So we're going to put 0 in for h and find what time that is. So we're going to solve for t. So we have two terms, and our first thing always is to factor out our greatest common factor. So I'm going to factor out a -16t. Remember, when I factor that out, it's like I'm dividing by that term, and I should get t minus 6. So we're finding when that height is 0. So we have two factors that equal 0. So I can find t by setting each of those factors equal to 0. Because if they multiply to be 0, then each factor can be set to 0. So divide by -16. And we know we have t equals 0. Add 6 to both sides. And t equals 6. So the two times that the height was 0 was at 0 seconds, which that makes sense, right before the golf ball was hit, and at 6 seconds. So it's going to return at 6 seconds. So not new concepts, it's just trying to understand those word problems, which sometimes can feel really uncomfortable. But we'll go through a few examples here. Also remember, in Delta Math, you have videos that you can watch if you're not understanding something. So the width of a rectangle is 3 units less than the length. Always helps to draw it. We know what a rectangle looks like, right? In width and length. This is my width. This is my length. So we don't know either one, but we know the width is 3 units less than the length. So I'm going to make the length x, and then the width would be whatever the length is minus 3. And then the area of a rectangle, so area of a rectangle is length times width. So we know the area is 28. So if I take the length of x times the width, x minus 3, that equals 28. So I'm going to distribute out my x, because we want to set this equal to 0. And we can't do that until we've distributed this out. So we multiply times x to both terms. X times x is x squared. Minus 3x equals 28. Subtract 28 over. And I get x squared minus 3x minus 28 equals 0. So now we can factor. So what multiplies to be -28 adds to be -3. So one has to be negative, one has to be positive to multiply to be a negative and add to be a positive. So -7 and 4. So since a is 1, we know these are my factors. X minus 7 and x plus 4. That's only because a is 1. Now to solve this, we're going to set these equal to 0, each of these factors. Add 7. X equals 7, and x plus 4 equal to 0. Subtract 4. x equals negative 4. So we said x is our length. And if I'm looking at this, either the length is 7 or negative 4. And we know that a length can't be negative, so we're going to use the 7. So my length is 7 units. And my width is 7 minus 3, or 4 units, which makes sense because if I multiply those, I would get the area. So what is the length of the rectangle? 7 units would be my answer. So draw it out and then set up your equation from what the word problem says. Let's look at another one. When 32 is subtracted from the square of a number, so we're going to square a number, subtract 32, we don't know the number. The result is, so that equals 4 times the number. So we have a quadratic equation or a squared term, so we want to set it equal to 0, so we'll move over this 4x by subtracting it. So I get x squared minus 4x minus 32 equals 0. Now we can factor. Multiplies to be negative 32, adds to be negative 4, negative 8, positive 4. A is 1, so my factors are x minus 8, x plus 4. We'll put each of those factors equal to 0. Add 8, x equals 8, subtract 4, x equals negative 4. So two possible numbers that would fit this solution would be 8 and negative 4. We want the positive on number, so we want 8. So again, read that out, try to write an equation with it. So here, product of two consecutive positive integers. So consecutive means they're right after another, like 5, 6, 7, 8, those. So we don't know them, but we know one we can have as x, and then the one next to it, right after it, would be x plus 1, because it's 1 away. So their product, so product means multiply, equals 132. This needs to be set equal to 0, so to do that, we're going to have to distribute this out. Get x squared plus x equals 132. We're going to subtract over 132. Get x squared plus x minus 132 equals 0. And now we can factor. Multiplies to be negative 132. Adds to be 0, or adds to be 1. 1 has to be negative and positive because they multiply to be a negative. And you should get positive 12 and negative 11. Those multiply to be negative 132 and add to be positive 1. Again, a is 1, so we can factor that right with these. So x minus 11, x plus 12. Put each of those equal to 0 and solve for x. Add 11, x equals 11, x plus 12 equal to 0, subtract 12, x equals negative 12. We want the positive integers, so if one is 11, the one next to it would be 12. So 11 and 12 are the two integers. So try this one. Pause the video, set it up. I'm going to write the equation here soon. Try it first. I would recommend trying it without watching and then solve out, and I will give you the answer too. So hopefully you wrote out the equation, difference of a square of a number. So difference means subtraction. So you have x squared and 9 equals 8 times the number. So that's how your equation would work. You're going to set that equal to 0 and solve. Go ahead and try that out, but you should get x equals 9. All right. Let me know if you have any questions.